Welcome. So in this video, we're going to talk about the buy, borrow, die retirement phase. We're going to use a real live case study from someone who phoned in to the Dave Ramsey show. And she's a 47-year-old doctor from San Jose, California. So let's listen in to what Dave told her to do. Now, I can't show the full clip just because obviously YouTube will take it down, but we can listen in.
I'm 47 years old, and I need help finding motivation to work for another 13 years until I'm 60 years old. I have about $2.1 million in various 401ks and about $1.6 million in stocks and bonds and a $20K savings emergency fund in my bank. As I said, I'm 47 years old. I've never married, no kids. I support my parents who are in their 80s, and I have no debt. My 3 houses are paid off, and I've paid off my medical school loans. I make about $200K a year as a doctor. Now, if I work another 13 years until I'm 60 years old, I'll get free health insurance for the rest of my life, and I can start receiving my pension at age 60 years instead of at age 65 years.
What do you like about your work? What do you not like about it?
Okay, the most important part is Dave turned it into a therapy session, okay? And admittedly, he does tell her she could retire, she could stop working. She also admits her financial advisor told her she could retire. But it doesn't work because you can't use therapy in a math fight, yeah? So a doctor who's institutionalized doesn't respond to like, what do you love about your job? What's your purpose? This and that. She responds to logic. She responds to compliance, math. She needed hit with the numbers. So let's look at how a family office would structure her retirement. In the video, when she speaks to Dave Ramsey, she says her passion is music. She wants to spend time with her aging family members. What we actually have here is a multi-millionaire doctor who is volunteering at the local hospital. She could have quit work the next day. And she's under this illusion of free healthcare. She says, if I work for another 13 years, I'll get free healthcare. And no one says anything to her, but it's absolutely not free. Since when is working another 50,000 hours free? She has enough assets to fund her lifestyle and her medical costs. And with this spreadsheet, her net worth will be way over 10 million by the time she's retired. Or, well, she's retired immediately, but in the 13 years, she'll have over 10 million of a net worth. So let's run the math. Right now, this is the stats. So I calculated her estimated net worth to be 7.5 million. She's a doctor, annual salary 200,000. She has 3 paid off rentals. I believe it was 3 in San Jose, California. So I've roughly estimated them at be 2.5 million. Her 401k 2.1. Her brokerage, taxable brokerage 1.6. This actually turns out to be the saving grace for my calculation. Keep in mind, she's in California, W2 income. So her actual net take home is 131k. And immediately, we are going to increase her net take home with her assets the next day. So the first thing I want to do when we're structuring this, I'm looking at the 3 paid off rentals. If she sold them, she would pay capital gains tax. However, we don't want these because these are problems. If the roof breaks, she needs to go and organise and fix it. If she has tenants that are annoying, she needs to deal with it. Contractors, broken boilers, problems. We want to get rid of these, but we don't want to pay the capital gains tax. So what do? We use the 1031 exchange. So you can defer paying capital gains on the sale of an investment property if you reinvest the proceeds to a like-kind replacement property. And that is the Delaware Statutory Trust. So she can own a piece of like an Amazon fulfillment center or a commercial property, and let's just say she gets a 5% yield. So she transfers it. Remember, the ground is lava when you're doing this. So she transfers it into escrow, then she transfers it straight to the Delaware Trust. So we saved her immediately. She is getting a 5% yield on the 2.5 million, 125,000 of annual income, versus her paying potentially up to 900,000 in taxes from the properties. But she's now getting a 5% yield, and she just doesn't need to do anything. That is truly passive because it's in the trust. Then we have the taxable brokerage. What do we do with that? So there's so much things she could do, but I said she's not an active investor, right? That's fine. 10-year Treasury, 4.35%, zero volatility. Well, sorry, that's not true. There is volatility with a bond, but as far as the actual return, it is set and guaranteed at whatever she purchases it at. So it's 4.35% in this example. Let's look at the math. So she's taken half of her taxable brokerage, and the rest of it is went into the trust. Look here, we've got an annual passive income of 34,800 from the bond, and the rest from the trust. So her actual take home now is already more than her 200k salary, because the commercial real estate does have depreciation loss. So about 60% of her income can be a phantom loss on paper. So she pays almost zero federal or state tax on a massive chunk of her cash flow from the DST. The US Treasury is legally exempt from state and local income taxes. So California cannot touch a single dime of this yield. She only pays federal taxes on it. So after the write-offs, she's getting between 135 to 138. So immediately, she's actually making more money using this method than actually working. But remember, she thinks she'll get free healthcare in 13 years. The question is anything really free? Well, it's definitely not if you have to work 50,000 hours for it. Then, the other half of the money, NASDAQ 100, 800k. If that was to compound at 15%, her value would be 4.9 million in 13 years. Now let's keep in mind, she needs to pay for her healthcare. Well, if she set aside $24,000 to fund the healthcare, she could either use her income to fund that, but if her income that we've just created doesn't fund it, she could use a tiny margin loan on the NASDAQ. Over the 13 years, including inflation, total cost of healthcare are calculated at $425,000. You see that? So by year 13, if it did compound at an average of 15%, her loan to value, her debt to asset of just this portfolio, 8.63%. It's tiny. Her assets are vastly outperforming her healthcare debt. That's if she even wants to do that. She could potentially still afford it on her income, but she doesn't need to do that. She can use the buy, borrow, die strategy. All we need to do for her is get her to close her eyes and not look at her NASDAQ portfolio, so she eventually becomes immune to the volatility, because she does have her income from her bonds and her trust. But we still have her 401k. And what do? Well, she can start her Roth conversion ladder. Because keep in mind, she's now on the lowest tax bracket, or a lower tax bracket. Because when she was a doctor, look, her taxes were 37 plus 13%. So over 50% of her income was almost going to the government. But now she can fill up her Roth IRA every year. Yeah. Now, the chances are she might not be able to take all of it because the compounding is fighting against her. But there's more than enough there for retirement. Yeah, so her 401k is worth potentially 2.8 million in 13 years. And she's got a Roth IRA here. Yeah, the Roth balance has went up to 2.7. And I've put her down as she's funded the taxes for the transfer herself out of her own income. if she wants to do that. But again, she's got so much options there. She needed to be hit with the math. Yeah, her final net income outside of her main home, over 10.7 million, compared to her working another 50,000 hours for 13 years. Dave was telling her to negotiate her prison sentence. Yeah. He was saying, yeah, try and negotiate it. What do you like about the job? What do you like? What do you not like about it? No, she came on with a problem. Her problem was, I've got aging family members I want to spend time with. I want to play music. I want to do this. I want to do that. And to her, she was so institutionalized that she thought part-time work was like 50 hours a week and full-time work is 80 hours a week. That's just common in hospitals. That's so common for them. They get institutionalized that their brain just, it's almost like they can't escape it. You need to hit these people with the logic. They need to see the math. They need to see the spreadsheets. You can't use emotion to try and convince someone like this. They only respond to pure logic and math. Because otherwise, why did she even phone up? If her financial advisor told her she could retire, she didn't. That wasn't good enough for her. Dave told her she could retire, but instead he used therapy when he should have used math. She needed to understand that her healthcare was not free. So there you go. That's how I believe how a family office would structure the deal. That's how we would structure the assets. The assets pay for everything. It's all about the architecture. And when you see the math, look how small the debt to the asset is there. It's tiny. When you see this sort of math and you see this sort of structure, the FIRE movement just seems totally inferior. It's almost comical. They would liquidate all the assets. I mean, in this case, she didn't have any children, but at the end of the day, she can still donate this to whatever she wants. She can pass this on to other family members. She can donate it to whatever she wants. Doesn't matter. It's up to her. But the point being, her assets have compounded, and that's just over 13 years. She's still got the rest of her life to go. And there's more than enough assets to do it. And we've minimised the tax and immediately increased their income. So there you go. It's all about the structure. It's all about the architecture. There is always a solution. There's always a solution. And that is what it's about. We structure it like a family office.